We're beginning on Daf Mesechtes Kidushin Daf Zayin. We begin on the bottom line of Avam and Beis, where the Gemara continues with some unique cases of what would be considered as a valid Kidushin of Kesef, which is what we discussed in the first of the Kinyonim of Kidushin. Let's just go back to the Kazakh and Cheskel, turn to the Davachaim. We appreciate Eben who's joining us for today's Daf. Some of the discussed in today's Daf are 10 manul plani. Interesting. Here, give money to that guy, v'kedishlach, and I'll be engaged to you. So this guy's coming to girls, says, let's get married. He's like, I want to get engaged. I'm going to buy you a beautiful ring. Says, no problem. But give it to that guy. And then says the Gemara, shall be Mikudeshim in Ariv. As we'll see, that a guarantor is not getting any personal benefit, yet he could be Machayiv himself. The woman too could be Machayiv herself in Kidushin by the benefit that someone else is getting. Or Heilich money, let's say he says, here, take this 100 dinar, Biskachi Laplani, and be engaged to this other man. So, meaning the guy is giving it to the woman, and she's taking the $100, but he's saying, but don't get engaged to me, be engaged to this other guy, to this Shimon. B'Kudeshim did Eved Kanani. The Kidushin will work from the halachic medium of Eved Kanani, meaning Eved Kanani could acquire himself by money that other people are giving to redeem him. So here also, you could have the benefit for this other guy, for the Shimon, from Reuven, who's giving the money to this Rachel. Now, we're going to get then, we're going to double up 10 mana laplani. If let's say she says, give 100 dinar to that other guy, and I'll be engaged to him. You're going to have both. You're going to have both of the Ariv Halach and the Eved Kanani together, where neither guy nor girl are getting the benefit themselves. That still the Kidushin will work. The question is, Heilich Mon about Kaddish Anilach. The question is, if he says, here's take the money and I'll be engaged to you. Ma, what's halacha? The question is regarding, if let's say he says, be engaged to half of me, they will say mekudeshes, but in contrast, half of you engaged to me in mekudeshes is the difference between the guy and the girl. The Gemara discusses regarding the halacha. Someone says that the leg of the carbon should be an oila, the whole thing becomes oila. The question is going to become, if someone says when half of you is mekudeshes, why is that not mekudeshes? Why don't you say that the kedusha is mispashid throughout the whole woman, like you say by a carbon? So we begin the current daf vav mabeis. The bottom line, the Amid, the Gemara has interesting concepts that it talks about right now. Amid Rava. Now let's say the woman says, 10 mana laplani. You want to get engaged? No problem. Give 100 dinarim to that other person. And as the Gemara continues, top of Zayin and Aleph, the ekadish loch. When you give the $100 to that yankel, so when he gives it to yankel, the $100, he says to the woman, I want you to be engaged to me. So Mekadesh, she can be engaged. Even though no benefit came to the woman's hand, she didn't get any money from her chassan. How does that work? Isn't Kidushin a kinyam kesev that he's going to give her money and she's going to get a benefit? We just said Mekadesh, but nobody doesn't work. He's not giving her anything right now. He has to get a chance to get something right now. What is she getting? That is going to create a Kidushin. Says the Gemara, midin arev. From what we find in the Torah, that a guarantor, an arev, could be indebted to the lender, we could learn out, as the Gemara explains, by arev, lav avagav, isn't it, even though he doesn't get any personal, he's not getting the loan, yet kamashab benavshe, he's lining up there, you need 20 arevim, the woman needs to have, the grusha needs to get some $5,000, you have these 20 BMG guys lining up, I'm a uriv, right? What do you get? How are you being mashabed yourself? The loiva gets a hana, so they can be mashabed themselves. How does the ariv work? Yeah, he's going to make himself indebted through the hana of the loiva. Someone else is getting benefit. So the guarantor could make himself indebted. So hayitzanami, same thing as this woman too. You're right. Although she herself is not getting a personal benefit, how is it kamashab de mekanya navsha? Because someone else is getting a benefit. So therefore, she could say, give the ring, give the $100, give the whatever it is that you want to give the Kidushin to me, to that other person. By giving it to them, I'm happy. That's my benefit. And that's the same thing as Arav works. How's Arav Mashabed himself? With what? With what Hana? With the Hana that the Loiva is getting the loan. So therefore, you see from the principle of Arav that the same thing would work in the case of a woman. Now, or let's say another interesting case. Let's say he tells her, the man tells the woman, Heilich mana. Here, take this 100 dinar, and be engaged to someone else. like Rashi explains, he's his shliach, but he's using his own money. So even was learning mismanage all day, mikvahs, doesn't go out, doesn't date. Says to Shimon, do me a favor, I have no time to go miss Seder to get engaged. Do me a favor, go and get engaged to her. But Reuben didn't realize he has to send money also to make a Kidushin. Talmudic times he would get engaged literally. So Shimon from his own pocket he pulls out, he finds a 10 shekel, bill, and he goes and he's mekadosh from his own money. On that says the Gemara says Rabbah that she's going to be mukadeshes, she's going to be engaged, even though the money is not from the mishaleach, from the chassan. How does it work? But he's not giving her anything. It works midin eved kanani. What does it mean from that? Where does the eved kanani come into this shidduch over here? Because the Mishnah teaches later on the Chav Beis and Beis that an eved kanani, a non-Jewish slave, could acquire himself. He could buy himself out from his master with money that other people are giving him because he doesn't even have his own money. Everything he gets goes straight to Mashakon Eved Kan Rabbi. The others can redeem him with their money, and then he'll acquire himself. He goes out free, even though he didn't cough up any money here at all. So says the Gemara, that's the same principle over here. Eved Kanani by a non-Jewish slave, isn't it? Even though the slave himself didn't lose any money, yet he could acquire himself as if he bought it himself. The Meshaleach, this Chassan, this guy also, this Reuven, even though he didn't shell out anything, he didn't spend anything, he's not missing anything, he could acquire this woman. So that works in the principle of Eved Kanan. Now the Gemara goes and says a third case. Let's say the woman says, 10 money on the plane, give that 100 dinarim to that other person, and I'll get engaged to him, to that person, with the $100 that you give him because of me. Mikudeshes b'din shnehem should be engaged through both principles that we just spoke about. A compound of the Ariv and the Eved Kanani, we can learn at this third mixture of a case. How does that work? So the Gemara explains. And the Gemara goes through and it shows you each way. Ariv by the guarantor, lav avagav, isn't it? Even though there's no benefit coming to the guarantor, yet he can make himself indebted and responsible. So hayitzanami, this woman also, although she's not getting any personal benefit from this 100 dinar, she's being meshabed and she's going to be acquired to the chassan. Now the problem is, wait, midami, is it comparable? Or by the guarantor, the one that the guarantor is acquiring himself to, which is to the lender, at least that lender, he lost that money. He shelled out the loan, and therefore it makes sense to be meshabed yourself to such a person who is shelling out the money. But Hai Gabra, this person, the chassan, how is he acquiring this woman? He didn't shell out any money. He's that other man. On that, Eved Kanani, the non-Jewish slave halacha will prove. Because the like chassan that Eved didn't shell out any money, and yet for Kokoni Nafshi acquires himself because other people are spending the money for him. But then the question is that comparable? Hasam Hachdeka Makne, there, the owner of the slave who's doing the transaction of the slave and letting him go free, Kakani, at least he's acquiring the money that he's receiving from the redemption from the others. But Hachaba here, Ha'itza Kamakanya Nafsha here, the woman that's transferring herself, Lo Kakanya V'lo Midi, and she's not acquiring anything from that money. Well, the halach of Arv could prove that. Although the one who's being makna themselves, mishabed themselves, not getting any benefit, still mishabed nafshe, still you can make yourself mishabed. So from a compound of these two halachas of Ariv and Eved Kanani, you have this unique third case. She tells to this Reuben, give Shimon the $100 and I'll be engaged to Shimon with the $100, which is through the principles of both Ariv and Eved Kanani. Now the Gemara has the following question by Rava, another case number 4. Let's say the woman says, hey Lechmana, here, take this $100, V'kadesh ani lecha, and I'll be engaged to you. So the woman walks over to the man, and she says, here, take this $100, I'll be engaged to you. And he takes the $100, but he tells her, I want you to be engaged to me with this money that you're giving me. Ma, what's halacha? So Mazutra Mishmei the Papa says Mukadesh, she's being engaged, which was explained shortly. How does that work? Why would it work if she's giving him the money? Didn't we say that he has to give and he has to say? The only Rav Ashi Lamar Zutra says, but that's the case. He asks an interesting question. He says, really? She gives him $100 and then she's going to be engaged? This is essentially a asset that has insurance, meaning we know property, real estate is considered has achrayus. There's always insurance, is because property can't run away. So if you have collections on a certain property, you're in a good place. In contrast to metaltalin, where some guy could take it, you could have no matter what, it could be the Mona Lisa, it could end up somewhere in some guy's basement. You don't know where it's going to be. Now, Adam, man, is compared to karkais. As the pasuk says, when it talks about slaves, which is people, it says you're going to inherit it as inheritance of achuzah. So, and that's talking about like the Yerush of Karka. So we see that people are considered nechasim shesh l'machrayis. There's also considered, even though a person could be taken and moved around, but halacha compares them to Karka. So essentially, the woman is in the chasim shesh l'machrayis. If you're acquiring, which is what Kidushin is, you acquire the woman, she is a asset that there's insurance to. Niknim, it comes out that they're acquired in the chasim she'en l'machrayis, with properties that have no insurance. Meaning, if someone sells or gives to a person real estate and movable items, and let's say someone does meshicha, draws movable item, which in this case is the money that the woman's giving to the chasen. So the karkais, the properties, are going to be acquired with the pulling of the metaltalin. That's exactly, in other words, that's what's happening over here. She's giving him metaltalin. She's giving him $100, and then she's acquiring herself with this $100. So you're acquiring nechasim sheyesh l'machrayis, which is what the woman is, through nechasim she'ein lehem machrayis. Interesting way of characterizing it. But that's essentially what's happening. She's giving him metaltalin, which is money, which is nechasim she'ein lehem machrayis, and through that he's acquiring her. That's what we said. We said she gives him the $100, and he says, "Okay, I want you to be engaged with me." We said she's going to be engaged. So by giving nechasim she'ein lehem machrayis, he's also acquiring nechasim shesh l'machrayis, because a woman is an adam is compared to karka, which is considered nechasim shesh l'machrayis. So he's not getting metaltalin. He's giving her. He's giving her one thing, and he's getting one thing. Here he's getting two things. He's getting money and a woman. And how's he acquiring the woman? What's he doing? Nothing. By doing meshicha on the metaltalin. By taking the money, he's acquiring her. So it comes out you're acquiring nechasim shesh l'machrayis with the nechasim through nechasim she'ein l'machrayis. Problem is, but we learned in the Mishnah of Chavam and the exact opposite. Mishnah says nechasim she'ein lehem machrayis, metaltalin is niknim in nechasim shesh l'machrayis. Can be acquired with nechasim to have achrayis, where you have to acquire the property with one of the ways that a karka could be acquired. For example, with bekeseh, with money, b'shtar, with a document, b'chazaka, taking possession by closing or locking or breaking open some type of wall, and then you could acquire the metaltalin through the karka. But you can't do the other way around. So how's this case working? That by her giving him money, he's acquiring her also. It doesn't work that way. It should work if anything the other way. So Amalei said to him, no, mi savar da'amra le'agav. You think that he was saying this halacha of what's called agav? Agav is halacha that through one kinyan, you could acquire the other thing. You're right, that doesn't work. You can't do meshicha metaltalin and acquire properties. You could acquire property and acquire the metaltalin through that. That's not what this halacha is working through. Here we're talking about a distinguished personality who doesn't usually accept gifts. This or that, but doesn't take money. He's dating this girl, and she's like, Rebbe, please do me a favor, take this $1,000, take it from me. And he says, okay, guys, nemen, aber haret mekadeshes li bekesev zeh. Oh, the behi hanua, the kamakabel matanimina. In that benefit, that pleasure, that he's taking the gift from her, that he'll be willing. That, meaning, like Rashi explains, that you would even give the Gabbai says you would give him $100, say, do me a favor, get this pidyon gilt into the Rebbe. that he'll take this gift. I want to give him this menorah that ever doesn't take gifts. Do me a favor, I'll give you $500, whatever it takes to get him to take it. So that is hana, has monetary value. So it's with that hana that he's acquiring her. So it's like he's giving her, although he's taking, sometimes taking, he's giving and giving and taking. What? Which money? Is that considered? Is that considered as a benefit? You want to know? Well, you want to know which? How would it happen? What would the kinyan be chal on? You want to know, meaning on just the fact that he should just be able to say harein mekadeshesli. By saying harein mekadeshesli, there's hana of right, but it sounds like you have to have a monetary value, like Rashi explains it, like that you can't. You want to know? Could you give someone $100 to get him to agree to the Kidushin? I hear. Interesting question. Would that be? Yeah, we're saying that he. Well, also you have to have an actual transfer of kesef. We said l'charina. We said in the cases of just everything had money so far that we spoke about till now. It just wasn't given right now. You extended the time. Which case do we speak about? That just. No, I know, but I'm saying, but no, I know, but does there have to be a hana that's through kesef? Did we see any cases that just hanua? Every case over that we spoke about, seemingly, what? Yeah, but that's still related to money. Could you just have hana that's not connected to anything and say that's hana shabbat kesef? It's worth money.
Hana was only later.
No. That's a Rashi. No, Rashi explains right now. You would have to. That's a Rashi explains lahedya. Rashi lahedya bavarning this. You would have to give money. She's willing to give a pruta to someone that to be mefayis to this one to receive a gift from her. That's a Rashi always translates.
The minute he says yes,
Right. Another right. Exactly. That's the question. Right. So the Gemara says that these teachings of Rava that we learned regarding Kidushin that we said, these unique halachas of Orev and from Ebed Kanani, so it's said over in the name of Rava also that the same thing halacha applies to monies too. So Rashi explains what these cases are talking about. The same interesting cases. Let's say you sell someone a field and you tell him, here, you want to pay me for the field? Give the money to that other person, and my field will be sold to you like that. That's going to be acquiring from the halacha of Orev. Like we said, that you could be meshabed yourself, even though you're not getting any hana. Something over here, the seller could sell the field, even though he's not getting any benefit. Or a second case is, let's say he tells him, here, take this 100 dinar, and let your field be sold to that other person. That other person will acquire the field from the halacha of Ebed Kanani. Although that guy's not spending anything, that's okay. The Ebed also is not spending anything. He's also getting freed. And the third case was, if let's say he says, he gives this 100 dinar to that person, and let that guy acquire my field through that, well then it's going to be from both of them together. It's going to be the same Ebed Kanani and that of Arv together, where even though this guy is not losing anything, and this guy is not getting anything, still that Yanim guy will have the benefit of both of them. Again, exactly like the same halachas. And the Gemara says, we have to say the halacha of these three cases, both by Kedushin and by monetary law, because the Yeshmin Kedushin, have we said regarding Kedushin, yeah, I would say, because this woman is agreeable to be acquired as a wife, whatever kinyan you could think of, even just what's called Tevas Anah, which she's getting something, she's getting at least the benefit of choosing who it should be earmarked to. So maybe they will say it'll work. Why by Kedushin? Because Kiddush Lakish, a famous teacher, Kiddush Lakish says, Tavla Mesav Tandu, it's better to be dwelling as two bodies, meaning a husband and a wife, even if she just has company, from sitting as a widow. So maybe it won't be agreeable, and therefore it's going to work. But regarding regular monetary law, I would say maybe it doesn't work. And had we said regarding monetary law, I would say, yeah, from the issue of the mechila, because a person is allowed to pardon their money, they could just be meichel. And therefore, yeah, go ahead, give it to this guy, whatever, and it could work through a medium of mechila. But I would say regarding Kidushin, it's not true. You can't be mekadosh mechila. You have to have an actual benefit. So I would say maybe that's not going to work. So truth, you have to say that no, it works in both contexts, both by Kidushin and by the halacha mammon that's going to be considered as a kinyan. Now, Amar Rabba continues saying some interesting cases. His kachili lechatzi. Let's say the guy says to the girl, "I want you to be engaged to half of me. Mukadesha should be engaged." The question, which half? But it's half of me. Chetzim mukadesha li. But let's say he says half of you is engaged to me, then in Mukadesha not engaged. Some of the Ba'al Rabbi says, "What's this? Misogynist? What's the difference when he says half of you is engaged to me, the end Mukadesha is not engaged?" Because Isha Merachman, the Torah says that Kikach Ish Isha. So it has to be a full woman. But Loichatz Isha, not a half of a woman. So when we Hachanami Ish Merachman, the Torah says Kikach Ish. Loichatz Ish, not a half of a man. You know, half the man used to be, right? So how's it working of Chatziyah? Why is Chatziyah going to work? Somebody says, no, Hachi Hashta could be comparable. Hasam over the Itzla Beitrei, a woman to marry to two people, Loi Chaziz, she's not fit. So therefore, this guy is only engaging only half of her. That means half of her remains for others to be able to get married to. That can't work. So therefore, she's not engaged even to this guy. But a man, when he says to half of me, you think a man's not allowed to marry two women? That's what he's telling her. That if I want to get married to another one, this is not going to marry another one. So I want you to get engaged to half of me, because I'm leaving another half of me for another woman. So therefore, that's going to work. So that's why there's a difference. Now, however, the Gemara has the following question. Rabbi says, wait a second. Why is it that when you said that Chetziech is not going to work because a woman can't be only halfway engaged because she can't be permitted to another man in the other half? But why didn't you say la kedusha bekula? Why didn't you say when he says half of you is engaged to me, as Rashi explains, the terminology of Kidushin is a lashon of hektish, and when you're makdish something, half of an item, half of a living creature, the whole thing becomes kaddish. So why wouldn't that automatically make her engage, even if you say chetziech? Because Milaitan didn't we learn the brayso of someone says that the leg of this animal should be a carbon oila, tehei kula oila. So then the whole thing is going to be a carbon oila, because even according to the one which Machlokes is Masechtas Tamura that holds in kula oila, that's not all oila. When we say this, that's only if you're sanctifying something that the soul of the creature is not dependent on. Like a leg. You amputate a leg, fine. Let the leg be hektish. That's not going to make the whole thing be hektish. But if you're sanctifying something that the soul depends on, which if you're doing half the person, there's definitely, you can't cut off half a person and them to survive. Definitely their soul would leave them. Havikula oila, it's all oila. So here it's chetziech. So why isn't it that the Kidushin is mispashed bekula, and why is she not engaged when you say chetzich? The Gemara says no. Midam, is it comparable? Hasam over there in that brisa is talking about behema. It's like Rashi explained, who cares that it's an animal? It's his. No one's stopping him from sanctifying it. So therefore, there's power in his statement to manifest throughout the whole animal. Over here, das acheres. We have another opinion over here that's significant, just like him, that could stop the Kedushin. Because if a woman doesn't want the Kedushin, it's not going to be a Kedushin. And here she's only agreeable to half of her. So therefore, his words are not going to go ahead and grab a hold all of her. Because actually, actually what it would be comparable is actually to the halacha of Rabbi Yechanan, that he says, if you have an animal of two partners, since in the beginning of its sanctification, it was not fit to be sacrificed, because here you have someone stopping that. We don't say that it could be sanctified through one person because there's two owners. So if someone sanctifies half of it, because of Allah, and then he takes the other half and buys it out his partner, the Kidushin sanctifies it, we say Kidushin be'ein kereva. It's going to be sanctified, but it's not going to be able to be sacrificed, because since in the beginning when you sanctified, it wasn't fit to be sacrificed because he was only sanctifying half it that he owned. So rather you have to sell it, and you have to bring a carbon with another carbon in it with its monetary value. But v'isa tamura, you could do a tamura, meaning if you do a hamara with it, and the tamura will have the same halacha, meaning like Rashi explained that you're not going to be able to sacrifice it because it's coming from a sanctity that's rejected, because originally when you sanctified, you only sanctified half of it. But the same thing is regarding Rava's halacha, that's not going to manifest because you only own half of it. The other owner, and actually even if you buy out the second half, it's not going to be able to be makriv. Here also, there's two parties that are involved in the Kidushin. There's the man and the woman. So he's saying half for you. Well, that's all she agreed to. So it won't be mispashid automatically to the other half. So the Gemara actually parenthetically gets us into the conversation. Once we brought in this teaching of Rabbi Yechanan, because he wanted to prove that chetzich is not going to be mukadeshes, because we're not going to say manifestation on the other half, because it's like two partners, which you have a man and a woman, and although he said chetzich and it's with neshamat liba, we thought it'll be mispashalik by an animal. No, animal, he owns the whole thing. Here it's by two partners. Here the woman also. So we brought in this teaching of Rabbi Yechanan. So Shemam in the class, we learned out three teachings from the teaching of Rabbi Yechanan. What are these three halachas? So Shemam when Tosfos discusses, two of them seem to be similar. Tosfos explains why all three are unique. First of all, Shemam we learn from this that Bali Chaim Nidachim, living creatures could be rejected from being valid as karbanas. Meaning, if they become rejected, they're rejected forever. What's the chiddush? Because there is an opinion brought in Yomei Daf Samach Daled Aleph that the halacha rejection from a karban is only if it was slaughtered. But if it's alive, that got rejected, it could come back and be valid and be viable again. Which actually, according to that mandamar, this animal would be able to be sacrificed when the first owner who sanctified his half buys out the other partner. It's not rejected. Now that he owns the whole thing, it's a valid animal to be brought as a carbon. What we hear from Rabbi Yechanan that he holds no, that a living creature could be rejected. That's teaching number one. And Bishmamina, teaching number two, we learn out that an initial inception of rejection is considered rejection, like this case, where initially when you were sanctified, it was never fit to be sacrificed. Because there is Amanda Amr and Sukkot of Lamagil and Beza holds that no, Dicha is only if it was Nirav and Nitcha. It was able to be a carbon, then it wasn't, then it's rejected. It was always from its beginning, it never had a valid sanctification. That's a second chiddush we're learning out from this halacha, that even from its inception it was rejected, it's going to be rejected. And the third one is V'shemamina, we learn out that yesh dichui, that this halacha of rejection b'damim, by something that's only sanctified for its monetary value. Like this case, when he sanctified this half of the animal that he owned, it's obviously for its monetary value that it should be sold, and that you should sanctify half of its value, because obviously he wasn't cutting half the animal and sacrificing. It's not fit to be brought as a carbon like that. And even so, it takes effect in that a halacha of dicha to be rejected, that it can never be brought to Mizbeach forever. And we don't say that the rejection is only by something that was sanctified in its physical sanctity to be sacrificed. No, we see that it is going to be dicha medamim. So those are three halachas we learn out parenthetically from this teaching of Rabbi Yechanan that we brought in just to answer why chetzich mekudeshes is not going to be mekudeshes. Now, continuing on similar types of questions regarding these halfway types of Kidushins, so by Rav had the following question. Let's say he tells the woman, look, there's one of these people, he says, he's like, you're counting all his pennies here. Half of you, okay, let me see, I get this. B'chatzi pruta is what half a pruta, which a pruta is the minimum of Kiddushin, as we pass like Basil. And the other half of you, b'chatzi pruta, is half a pruta. So what's the question? The Gemara explains. Since he said a half a pruta, it's a paska. So he's cutting it in half. So it's like Mekadosh Lechatzayin, which we said before is not going to be affected, because he's saying half of you would have a pruta, half of you would another half a pruta. So although it's a whole you with a whole pruta, but he's saying half, and half doesn't work. Like we said, Chetzich is not going to be Gedeshes. I didn't know. He's counting. He's just very, in that way that he needs to know every milliliter, And the first part of his statement was going to be based on what he was ultimately going to say. It wasn't halfway, because Chatzei Pruta you can't do anything with. So he's just counting. He's like, okay, there's half. Okay, that's half of you. And half. Okay, that's the other half of you. Right? You're engaged with a Pruta. That's the question. Was he counting? Or was he actually doing halves? And halves doesn't work. Imtim said, if you're going to say, yeah, it's going to work, because he was just counting towards the Pruta. How about if he says like this? What happens if he says, Chetzich bepruta, half of you is with a pruta, the chetzich bepruta, and the other half of you is with another pruta. Now this is different, because you can't just say he was counting, because a pruta itself is valid. So why wouldn't you say all of you is with a pruta? If he's saying chetzich bechatzi pruta, so everyone knows you can't be engaged with a half a pruta, so he was just counting towards the ultimate pruta. But if you said half of you is with a pruta and the other half of you is with another pruta, so the Gemara explains, what's the question? Even though you're saying a full pruta, which each half, the paskil milsei. So obviously, initially when he said his first thing was only for half, and then he made a mistake because he realized you can't do halfway. So then he says, and the other half. That's too late, because that Kiddushin wasn't a valid Kiddushin, it was on halfway. I didn't even know. Kol b'yomei, whatever is on the same day, since he intends to finish it up that same day, he is counting. He's giving 1 pruta, 2 pruta, 3 pruta, whatever, but it's still counting towards since on the same day. Imtim, you're going to say, Kol b'yomei, you're right. Anything on the same day, is still counting towards the ultimate, meaning he's not finished yet. So therefore, don't worry, it's not like halfway Kidushins. Well, how about if he says, Chetzach b'pruta hayom? Half of you is a pruta today, and half of you is a pruta tomorrow. Now, what's the question? Like, I'm going to explain. Given them since it's tomorrow, Pascha obviously he's doing halfway. It's not the same Kedushin. It's not going to work. I didn't know. What he's telling her is Kedushin Maschlamidna. The Kedushin is starting today, but I'm very slow. But we're not going to finish till tomorrow. But therefore, it's not a halfway Kedushin. It's a counter Kedushin. Another case is, what happens if what happens if he says the 2 halves of you are in the pruta? I like your right profile, not your left profile. Okay, but still, your 2 halves are going to be with a pruta. What's the question? Here, most definitely saying it one time. I didn't maybe know. You can't get a woman engaged in halves, and you're saying you're 2 halves, and if it's not going to work, so it's going to take a let stand. It's not clear what the answer is to these questions that Rava asked. Now, related types of questions, again, by Rava, with these halfways or compounds. So he says, what happens if he says, Shtei b'nasayich l'shnei banai? Your 2 daughters, my 2 sons, which are adults, and as Rashi says, his sons made the father a shliach to get them engaged, b'pruta, with 1 pruta. Ma, what's halacha? So, a very interesting case. Why? Because as the Gemara explains, on the one hand, do you go basa nice in the makablas lina? Do you go based on the one who gives and receives? Lamaisa, this tata to the other, to the mechitin, he gave a full pruta, and therefore maybe it should be a kedushin. I didn't know. Basa did who asling? We go after the subjects, the girls and the boys are getting engaged. Valeka, we didn't give a pruta. Says the Gemara, take a let it stand. That what the halach is going to be, which the Ri actually brings. That it must be talking about that these girls are katanas, where the kedushin goes to the father. Because if it's gedailos, and the father is receiving the kedushin as a shliach, like the father of the boys are, well, obviously that you would require pruta for each and every one, because the shliach is not better than the one who's sending him. Because like Rash, the Taisa says that when you say you go based on the one who's giving, it's not precise, because the one who's giving is obviously giving as a shliach for his sons, and if you go based on the Nisan, you would require 2 prutas as if the sons themselves are doing Kedushin. But the question is, if you go based on the Makabel totally, because maybe we're not concerned only that you receive a Shabbat pruta, and moreover, says you have to say that it was verified who's for who, the Rachel, Reuven, and Leis for Shimon, because if not, that would be Kedushin Shalonim Labia. But that's why the Ri says you have to talk about minors, because adults and their shluchim, then for sure would have to be 2 prutas. You wouldn't have a Havamina, there could be 1 pruta. What? That the boys are adult sons, because the father of boys cannot make a kedushin. The girls, however, have to be katanas. Now, Bayra Papi had the following question: what happens if he says this is like the old in the moshav or bitchel parascha beprutamahu? Says it's a package deal. If your daughter and the cow, I'll give you a pruta. What's halacha? What's the question? The Gemara explains. Do we say bitcha b'chatzi pruta? Must be he's giving half a pruta for the daughter. Uparascha b'chatzi pruta, and the cow is a half a pruta. Now that's not going to work because the kedushin has to be with a pruta. Maybe no. Maybe bitcha b'pruta. Like Rash says, he knows that you can't be mekadosh a girl less than a pruta. So it must have been that the daughter was for a pruta, but for the cow he wasn't saying anything about a pruta. Uparascha b'mashicha, and the cow I'll do mashicha. I'll acquire through pulling. So what did he mean when he says your daughter and the cow for a pruta? Take a listen. It's not clear what the halach is going to be in that case. Similar case, by Ravashi, bitcha v'karka'acha b'pruta mahu. Your daughter and this property for a pruta. What's halacha? Well, isn't this the same thing as a cow? So Tai says no. Tai says since a cow is not acquired with money, because a cow has to be acquired with mashicha, so we'll say the pruta is going on the daughter. Now we're asking regarding a daughter and property, because the property could also be acquired with money. So it's a stronger question. So what's the question? The same thing. Would you say, okay, look, your daughter I'll buy for the half a pruta and the karka for the other half a pruta? So that's not going to work. I didn't know. The daughter for the pruta, and the karka will be when I take possession in it. Take a look. It's not clear what the halacha is going to be in that case either. Now the Gemara brings a more complex case regarding, as was mentioned previously, regarding knowing the value. And that's the reason why when we give our rings for Kidushin, we give a simple ring for that reason that it shouldn't be difficult in evaluating its monetary value. We know about QZs, we know about things that look one way, but it's niche like that, and that could be a huge problem, as Taisa discusses based on the sugya. Hahu Gavra, there's a certain guy, the Aktish Bishidoi. So he got engaged to this girl with this bracelet. With silk, and bisharai, yeah, right. So Rabbi Ame says lo tzricha shuma. It doesn't need to have an evaluation. You don't have to evaluate it, and to know before it's received what its value is. It doesn't have to be appraised. It says no, tzricha shuma has to be evaluated, because if it's not evaluated in the beginning, she's not going to be engaged, as Gemara is going to explain. So the Gemara qualifies this. He says, if he says that, look, whatever this silk is worth, I want you to be engaged to me. So no one's going to disagree. You don't have to evaluate it because it's obviously not less than the pruta. Now, if he tells her that I want you to be engaged to me with 50 zuz, and here this piece of silk is the monetary value of 50 zuz, and it's not worth 50, so it's not worth, and obviously it's not going to be engaged. So what's the machlokes? He actually says, I want you to be engaged to me with a value of 50 zuz, and the silk cloth is worth 50 zuz. But it wasn't evaluated. The guy with the loop looking at it and taking it out and feeling it wasn't evaluated before. So Rabbi Amai says, yeah, it doesn't have to be evaluated. It's worth 50, it's going to work. Rabbi Yisrael, no, even if it turns out that it was worth 50, no, it has to be evaluated beforehand. Why? What shaykhs? Even the since a woman's not, she doesn't know rings, doesn't know diamonds, doesn't know silk, does not well versed in assessment. She's not relying on this until it's evaluated. So you're not going to have her consent for Kidushin to be in agreement until you actually have it evaluated. If you don't have it evaluated, she's not really in agreement, and then it's not going to work. That's one version. Those say actually a different version. Even if he tells the B'chaldu, even if he says whatever it's worth, I want you to be engaged to me. Nami pligi. Even there we have machlekes. Somebody says shavah kesef ready to kesef. Something that has the monetary value of money is like money itself, because by Kidushin it says kesef, and shavah kesef is included from kesef, as the Gemara says later on. It says yashiv, which includes shavah kesef. So therefore, what is worth money, meaning a silk, has to have the halacha like money, which is ma kesef the kids, just like money has a set amount. Money is, this is what it is. It's worth $5. It's a $5 bill, it's $10, whatever it is. So as you continue to chasam elf, am shava kesef nami dekayit. Also, it's worth money. Also has to be something that has a set amount. So that's exact. I mean, so here actually Taisa says another case, because regarding your question, Taisa says actually we see that there are those who don't hold a Rabbi Yosef that regarding a set amount. But al kapanim, this interesting machlokes that we have regarding if you have to be evaluated or not are really two different halachic principles. These two different versions. Either because she doesn't know how much this is worth, so she's not going to be confident that this is really what she's getting, and therefore she's not really being makna herself. Or no, it's even if it's something that for sure is worth money. But if you don't have a set amount, then it's not going to be qualified, because shavah kesef has to be like kesef, and kesef has a set amount. This has to have a set amount, and even if it's worth more than the dollar store that you'll get something, it doesn't make a difference. If I don't know exactly how much it's worth, it won't be qualified for the halacha of shavah kesef, and therefore not be a kinyan of Kidushin.